Hey everybody, in this tutorial we're going to introduce and explore the new 3D blocks that come with iClone 7.02. We're going to show you how to work those and why they're unique and apply different super substance tools to those to kind of demonstrate that. I'm also going to introduce you to the concept of mesh data for each of these props as well. So on the screen right now we have a number of the new props with 7.02. If we go to our props tab up here under props, 3D blocks, and Beveled, you'll find a selection of the new props. Now these all contain world space normal data and curvature maps. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. We also have new stuff under the quad mesh folder here, so very high poly planes and surfaces that you can use. Excellent for tessellation results. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later as well. But let's focus first on the beveled props here. Now I've already added a couple of these to the scene. And what I'm going to do to demonstrate the embedded mesh data that comes with them is I'm going to apply some of the Substance Super Tools packs. Okay, so I'm going to go over here to my Media tab, and under the Materials, Substance Super Tools, again this is available for separate purchase from the Content Store, I'm going to apply a 3-material mixer substance to my dodecahedron here on the left. Alright, and at first you'll notice not much of a difference. It looks exactly the same. If we go over here to Materials, and to the top, we'll see that we have the logarithmic flame in the bottom left there, indicating that it is now a substance material, and we're using the substance graph right here. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom, and to the substance section rather, and let's take a look at the mesh data that these props contain. So I'm going to go over here to mesh data, and if we select use inputs, you'll see that we now have a world space normal and a curvature map that have been added to our prop, and that's because these new props I mentioned, contain these two essential maps, and these are useful for stuff like edge wear and sun bleach and stuff like that, which I'll show a little bit later on. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that first. Let's modify some of the parameters here for our dodecahedron. In the materials section here, you can see we now have three different sections that we can add different materials and blend them together and stuff. I'm going to go here to base, and under base, we're using an input map. We're using just the basic input maps that come with the prop. We don't really want those. I'm going to change to something like a generator leather wood. You can see there's tons of options here. We can zoom in to get a better look at it. We have a nice leather, bubbled leather surface there. And we can go to generator, and we can change from leather to wood. So that's one option that we have there. We also have embedded fabric. We can close down the generator section now. With stuff like denim, linen, and nylon, and all kinds of fun stuff. There's all sorts of different embedded leathers as well, as opposed to the generated leather. Cordovan leather, like full grain, crocodile leather. Okay, and a bunch of metals as well. Chainmail, faceted metal, and pure gold, stuff like this. And then in the others section here, we have fur and basket weave. I'm just going to go ahead and you can explore those all on your own time. They all have their own parameters. I'm just going to use the embed metallic one, and I'm going to use the pure gold setting here to start. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can tweak this. You can see it's a really nice, shiny gold dodecahedron. If only we all had one of these, we'd be rich. Let's go into the tweak section here and enable the tweaks. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and darken the luminosity a little bit, kind of make it a dark black, and take the saturation down there, almost like a charcoal color there, like titanium or something like that. And then what I'm going to do is we're also going to change our roughness luminosity down to make it even shinier. Okay, so like we have a very, very slick and shiny, smooth surface like that. It's a beauty. All right, we'll just go ahead and close down our tweak values now. I'm going to throw in some abrasion on there. So if we go here to blemishes, or rather up here under abrasion, we can go ahead and enable the abrasion, and nothing will pop up right now. And the reason for that is because we're deriving the abrasion from a height map, which we don't really have in this case. What we need to do is change that to the curvature map, okay? So what's going to happen when we change it to the curvature map is we'll get some abrasion along the edges there. That's where so specifically around here, and that's what the curvature map is useful for, mapping out, edges of your prop. So these substance parameters like abrasion and edge can adjust properly. Okay, so you can spread the softness like this. All kinds of stuff you can do with the abrasion, increase the luminosity, something like that, have it a bit more light, and we get a nice look at it from this level here. You can also increase the surface intensity and stuff, normal intensity, hue saturation, all sorts of other values here you can kind of explore on your own time there. But let's go ahead and throw some blemishes in there as well. So I'm going to go over down to blemishes now and enable the blemishes. And then we get this kind of nice blemish on the surface there. So it looks really a lot more realistic. And there's lots of parameters you can adjust for blemishes as well. Increase or decrease the amount of specks on the surface. There's streaks as well. You can increase or decrease those. Change the rotation of the streaks and whatnot. There's specking patterns. Okay, so all sorts of customization options for you there to figure out on your own time. But I just kind of wanted to show you that's the reason for having the curvature map is stuff like edge wear, and you can also have sun damage or whatever you want to call it. And we'll show that later on when we talk about the multi-material aging substance tool here. Okay, let's go ahead and just quickly throw in another one here. So the reason I'm going to do this is because if we go ahead and use this eyedropper tool here, we can also use the B hotkey and select our material. We can then go ahead and paste it or paint it onto our podium right here. There you go. Okay, so now we have the podium, and notice that the world space, because we have those that curvature map, the edge wear is now in the correct places on this podium as well. So we don't have it like in a dodecahedron pattern because we have that curvature map. It knows exactly where to place the abrasion along the edges there. And then we can go ahead and modify this if we want. Let's go into our materials down here under our base material rather. We can change it from pure gold to something like faceted. And we get this kind of really cool faceted looking surface. And let's make it a little bit, let's tweak it back to regular values here. Add some saturation there so we get some pure gold podium, which I think we all wish we had. And then we can take off that abrasion there and also take off the, the blemishes there as well. There you go. We have this nice, shiny looking gold podium. Wowee. And with the podium, you can also do stuff like go into tweaks, and there's normal intensity here. So this will adjust the normal map. So if we increase that, you'll see that we have much stronger normal intensity there for a golden surface. It looks really beautiful and shiny. Okay, so you can go wild, choosing all these different types of fabrics and leathers and metallic materials and everything like that, and apply it to all your props in your scene. It's really all you need is all these embedded stuff. Basically, it's a catch-all for any of your project needs. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show the high-quality mesh here, the quad mesh. Okay, so I'm going to go to quad mesh, and I'm going to show you how to kind of create a wall, a sculpted wall, from scratch, from a simple plane here. So I'm just going to go ahead and double-click my plane 003 there, and we'll just throw it against the back wall here, somewhere to cover up this stucco wall, whatever it is. And I'm going to press the R hotkey to scale it up, and we'll scale it up like this, and make sure it's kind of stretched out this way. All right, we'll just throw that on there. Okay, and for this one, we're going to apply that same substance super tool. We'll go over here to media, and where is it? The 3 mixer tool there. And what I'm going to do now is manually load in the materials. So I can go over here to mesh data, and we can go to use inputs. And you see we have the world space and the curvature map and everything like that. It doesn't really matter in this case. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go to materials, and for a base material, I'm going to load in a bunch of materials here. So I'm going to go to my base color and find the right folder here. Here we go, in this relief folder there, quite a distance into my folder there. So we have this beautiful looking sculpture wall. You can see it's pretty flat right now, but we're going to add some stuff to it. So let's go add the normal map here. Right there, so we'll get a bit more depth, and we also have a roughness, I believe, right here, the R, and there is a metallic, which is the no metallic. We'll just have a height and a AO. So there's a height map right here, and the ambient occlusion map. All right, and then you see we get a bit more depth going on there. Now, because we have the height map, we can actually use our tessellation down here. If we go down to tessellation and increase the tessellation level so we get a lot more detail, we can throw that multiplier up there and kind of extrude the surface like this. Okay, so now we have the sculpted surface, whereas if we bring our multiplier value down, it'll just kind of flatten that out. So, really cool result there. Just, from a simple plane and applying a couple of maps, we get this, sculpted surface of a wall. And if we wanted to, modify this even further, well, we can go into tweaking to our base material, and to tweaks here, and just enable the tweaks, and Let's throw in some a little bit more contrast to the roughness map and a little bit less luminosity. The contrast kind of focuses the luminosity in certain areas. So you can see it's more specifically certain areas are more specifically smoothed out and shiny than others. So that's one thing you can do by increasing the contrast of your roughness map. You'll notice that those areas can get smaller and smaller the higher you increase the contrast on the roughness value right there. Okay, so we get a nice sculpted surface like that. All right, so pretty cool stuff. And again, the reason we have that high quality tessellation for this mesh again is, don't forget, if we go to scene here, we can go and load up our wireframe mode, and you can see it's a super high poly mesh right here. Okay, it's basically so high poly you can't even see the grid right now. Let's go ahead and go down to our tessellation level and throw that down a little bit. You can see we get much less detail. So it's always a good idea to have a high tessellation level when you want to get detailed extrusion like that from your surface. All right, something like this. Good stuff. All right, let's talk now about manually and auto-loading mesh data. So what I'm going to do now is start a new project. I'm not going to worry about this one. And let's press Control-G to turn on our grid so we're aware of where stuff is here. And I'm going to go to the Content tab, and under Props, I'm also going to go down to PBR here. And in PBR, we have an iClone 7 material ball. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and load this in. And let's press the F key to focus on it. Okay, and we have a nice shiny material ball here. Let's take a look at the materials on this material ball. We'll go over here to Materials, and we don't have anything for substance yet because we haven't applied any substances to it. So you can see we have our base color, AO and bump and blend map and everything like that there. And what we're going to do is I'm actually just going to go ahead and load in another one of those substance super tools, those good old substance super tools. So again, currently we have an ambient occlusion and a bump or a normal map, keep in mind. We'll talk about that a little bit later. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to apply the aging or multi-material substance super tool right here, and click and drag that onto our material ball. And you can see that it looks okay, but we don't have the aging in the right place really. So you'll notice that it kind of just looks a little bit strange. And if we go into our materials here, the substance parameters rather, and we go into stuff like paint and we choose an edgeware here. If we choose a mount for edgeware, you can notice it's not really going to have any effect because the reason for this is we don't have a world space normal map. This kind of tells us, or rather a curvature map, and this kind of tells us where the edgeware is supposed to occur, like I showed you on the abrasion example earlier. Now the world space normal comes in handy when we talk about sun bleach. So if I go to sun bleach and enable the sun bleach, notice we can't even tell there's really no, just basically the entire thing. You'll notice a very slight change in hue there, very bright, and it suddenly just goes very dark. So there's really no gradual sun bleach coming from the top to the bottom. And that's where the world space normal map comes in handy. If we go to our mesh data here, you'll see we do have the AO and the normal that transferred over from the material before, but we don't have a world space normal and we don't have a curvature map. If we did the same thing, like just delete this for example, let's go back to load it in one more time here. If we did the same thing and we deleted those ambient occlusion and bump maps here, so take this and delete the bump map and delete the AO map, and if we did the same thing by applying that substance super tool, then we can go into the substance parameters down here, and you'll see under mesh data that we no longer have that ambient occlusion and the normal map, all right? So let's try one example here where we manually load in those substances. So I'm going to go ahead or load those material maps rather, texture maps. So I'm going to load it in one more time here, and I'm going to go over here to my materials. I'm going to find the actual world space normal and curvature maps for this particular item here. So let's go ahead and do the same thing to our materials. Let's throw in the aging one there. And now if we go down to our mesh data here, I'm going to just manually load those in. So under world space normal, just double click and find that world space normal here, a different folder. Here we go, material ball right here, and just load it in. That's world space normal right here. You can see the WS at the end stands for world space. Let's just throw that in there, and then our curvature map here as well. So these maps are essential, and you notice now that it kind of messes up a little bit, and that's because the multiplier value, we want to set that to 0 because we don't want any tessellation on this particular item. And now notice that we have the correct sun bleach and the correct paint erosion rather. or paint edgeware. So if we go down to paint and we go to edgeware now, we can use the amount, and we'll see that now we can adjust the amount of edgeware. And that's because we now have the correct curvature map for that particular prop. All right, so really useful right there. If we throw that pretty far up, and then we can also go down to sun bleach. And sun bleach, if we enable that, we can see now we have the white area that's kind of closer to the top. All right, so if we increase the amount of that, you'll see that it kind of blends gradually, going further down the prop itself. Increase the strength there, and get an even stronger result. And then there's sharpness and occlusion and all that fun stuff. All right, so that's just kind of showing you how important the world space normal maps and the curvature maps are. Now you're probably wondering, like, what if I create a custom prop? I want it to automatically, if I apply a substance super tool to my custom prop, how do I get it so that it automatically loads all these maps in correctly? Well, I'm going to show you that next here. I'm going to delete this current prop on the screen. I'm going to go to props and custom props, and I have a couple of custom props saved in this substance tools tutorial folder here. I'm going to load in this custom material ball. This one's a little bit bigger there. All right, let's zoom out a little bit. And if we go to materials here, we don't have any maps here at all, basically nothing. Let's go ahead and throw the aging map on there, or the aging tool on there, and see what happens. You'll notice that we have the same result as before, and this is exactly what we want. And the reason for this is because I've basically, I'll show you in just a moment here. Let's go to the paint and just kind of demonstrate the edgeware, that it works correctly. Okay, so again, the same thing, paint edgeware and sun bleach. Enable that. Let's see the amount again, gradually going down in certain areas, and so on and so forth. And you're probably wondering, like, how did I get that to automatically apply to this prop? If we go to mesh data here, you can see we have the world space normal and the metallic and everything like that. The way I did that is if we go back to my props folder, custom tools here, if I right click on it, I can select find file. And you'll notice that there is a number of different files in here for each one of these separate props that I have. And they look like a notepad. They open with notepad, but they're actually called iSubstance source map files. Okay, so if I go to right click and go to properties, you'll want to have this file name at the end. So .iSubstance source map. Okay, and you can just create them using notepad or whatever. But let's go ahead and load it up. You can also go to file and just open with and select notepad. Keep using notepad in this case, and it'll come up with this little bit of data here. Now, notice that there's a number of different material names here: material ball blank, worldspace.png, so on and so forth, and they're all for different texture maps or different texture channels here. So you're probably wondering, like, how does it know where to find these material maps and and everything like that? Well, that's where this default folder comes in handy here. All right, so under template, there's substance preset, this folder right here. Okay, so this is a separate folder that I actually created. All right, so let's go ahead and find it. We can go over here to props, to our template folder. Again, so remember, see that you saw the template at the beginning there. You can just right click on any folder rather and just select find file. And closer to the bottom, we want to go out of the props first, so back into iClone template. So this is the main folder here. And then closer to the bottom, you'll find a folder called substance preset. Okay, so if I go into that folder there, this is where you can import in or create the folders that contain your custom material data. All right, so the custom material maps and everything like that. So if I go to the RL substance sample folder here again, so if I load up my notepad here, notice that we have that RL substance sample folder that I've already put in here, and iClone 7 material ball _ blank. Okay, so this is this folder right here. And in this folder, this is where I have all my materials. So it automatically, because I have this folder, or because I have this file, this substance material data file, it's basically showing iClone where to find these material maps that I've just kind of hidden here in this folder structure. So it may be a little bit complicated, but again, just right click and find file. And for your the original location of your prop, so I'm going to go back to my custom folder here. For the original location of your prop, right click and find file. Make sure you have that file in the same folder as your custom prop. Okay, so again, it's an iSubstance source map file, .iSubstance source map. Kind of a long file name, but that's what it is. It is what it is. Okay, so make sure you have that file in the same folder as your custom prop. and make sure that when you open it, you have this data right here directing you to the correct folder structure where you can find those material maps. And then you'll never have to manually add those material maps in the future for that particular prop, for curvature and world space normal. All right, so that's really about all there is to it, guys. I just kind of wanted to show you the importance of mesh data for these new props and just demo the quad mesh there that I showed you with the wall and everything. But, mesh data is pretty important, especially stuff like world space normals and curvature maps. And yeah, that's really about all there is to it. So thanks so much for watching, and hopefully you learned a lot. And I will see you in the next video.